Hi, and welcome to Prescribing Possibility, conversations that inspire us to grow, heal, and live with harmony. I'm your host, Dr. Dimna Weil. Thanks for joining me, friends. Welcome back, everybody, to Prescribing Possibility. Today, I am joined by Dr. Mary Leung, who is a triple boarded physician. I mean, I didn't even know there was anybody who was triple boarded. Anyway, she's a certified life coach, and she helps physicians reclaim their time, clarity, and joy. She's the founder of Shining with Gratitude MD, and she is recently a co-author of a book called Made for More 2, and it is bestseller on Amazon. How exciting. So she guides doctors to regain control and thrive both in medicine and in life. And for any of you who are not physicians who are listening, you're still going to get tons of value and wisdom from Dr. Lung. So welcome, Mary. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, my pleasure. So I would love to hear a little bit more about how you found yourself going through the process of training to become a coach. Like, what was the inciting situation?
Yeah, that was never on my agenda to
Yeah.
becoming a doctor to begin with. So, just briefly, I just went through a very straightforward path to becoming a physician. I wanted to help people. That was a simple thing. My parents, they're now retired, but they're both physicians. And I just use them as my example. They never forced me into medicine. And I'm very grateful for that. In fact, my other siblings, they're not in the medical field. And I just thought that, well, that was kind of a straightforward pathway for me to help people.
Mhm.
So I studied hard, went into medical school, residency. I chose internal medicine because I thought that there would be a lot of choices afterwards, be it just staying in internal medicine for practice or subspecializing. I really enjoy having that long-term relationship with patients beyond their diagnosis. So
Right.
that's why I chose internal medicine. Then, fast forward after fellowship, becoming an attending, I was thinking that, oh, now I'm at the top of the world. Not quite. Then I realized very shortly.
Right. Reality check, right?
Reality check, because I joined this practice in a community hospital, not a teaching hospital. And I was basically doing the same things as I was doing as a fellow, except a lot more responsibility because I was
Mm.
it.
Yeah.
I, I didn't have an attending to report to. And then gradually, I had a full schedule of
Mhm.
patients, and then I was taking longer and longer to finish my notes, phone
Oh,
calls.
here we go. It's the notes. It's the downfall of medicine is that darn EMR. Go on.
Exactly. Earlier on, I was still in the paper era. That was like actually not so bad because I was
Yeah.
not writing as much as when I was doing the EMR. So looking back, I realized that I started to feel tired, exhausted, and overwhelmed pretty early on, kind of couple years after becoming an attending physician.
Mhm.
And then I was just getting home later and later, and it would be past 7 o'clock and my work was not done, but I wanted to go home to see my kids so they would still recognize me as their mom.
Oh, yes.
And
Mm.
a lot of nights, I would still be working after they went to bed just to finish my notes because I did not want the notes to pile up. But then some
Mhm.
weekends, I would still have to finish my notes. That was miserable, and I was just slowly and gradually I was not really enjoying practicing medicine. I
Right.
didn't have the capacity to connect with my patients. All I was thinking was, "Let me just finish the day. Let me just finish the day."
Let me just ask you that because that's an interesting point, and I feel like I've heard this from my own clients in coaching, and I think everybody has a little bit of a different trajectory, but what was that defining point? Like, what shifted in practice that allowed that kind of a change to occur in the way that you were either, note taking or efficiency wise, do you think it was because there were more patients being seen, or perhaps our perfectionist tendencies and we wanted those notes to be beautiful? What do you think it was?
I think it's all of the above. It's a little, some of everything that,
Mm,
of course, most of us in medical school, well, and even early in schools, like we were trained to be perfect, to get the top scores, the perfect scores, perfect in everything. So I think that was really ingrained in me that I wanted to be perfect. I was like, did my notes sound good? What would other people think? Like, that's another thing. It's like, what would other
mm,
people think of my notes? Do I sound intellectual? Do I get my point across? And also, it's that I am a responsible person. So I want to, really take the time to see the patients. And
mhm,
for the longest time, my belief was that it was rude to write notes in the room, or to type
mm.
notes in the room. And so that proved to be detrimental.
Yeah,
Don't believe that anymore. And I hope that other physicians don't believe that also. And we can talk more about that in a second.
sure. Absolutely.
And so yeah, I think it's, of course, well, there's the big thing. It's like that I didn't get the efficiency part quite yet, even though I
Mhm,
wanted to be, I was working hard, I was trying my best, but I guess I just didn't, there were just some other things, some other beliefs that seemed to be more important, such as I believe that I needed to keep my patients as on time as
mm,
possible, meaning, according to the scheduled time. So, what I sacrificed was that my charting time, because in order to keep up with the 15-minute slots, I
right.
was I was just saying, forget it. Let me just do my notes later. And I suffered later.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I feel like we're not trained in, like, how it really is in practice. I mean, at least that's from my perspective, right? Like, in resident clinics, you had a lot of time, you didn't get booked as much until you got to be a senior, but even still,
Yeah,
I feel like you don't really know until you're out there doing it, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So you went on, and then how did that transition happen to being coached or becoming a coach?
Yeah. So then the pandemic came.
Ah, yes. Ah, yes. The P word.
Right. That's like I think that's the transformation for a lot of people and things in the world, of course.
Yes.
And I always believe that there is always something good coming out of something bad. And we just have to look for it. And
Mm,
sometimes we have to look a little bit harder, but it's there. And so then during the pandemic, because I am in hematology and oncology, so as much as we tried to just kind of reschedule patients, delaying their, appointments. There were just some oncology patients that we had to see, we had to treat, otherwise they would die without treating promptly. So then I was just seeing in the beginning of the pandemic, I was just seeing about maybe a third of the patients that I was seeing, maybe like 10 patients, or less sometimes, maybe about
mm,
10. And then I got to go home on
mhm.
time, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock with everything done. And that was wonderful.
Yeah. Say more about that, because I mean, your whole face changed. It was like, it
Yeah,
was wonderful. It's like the kid in the candy shop, right?
totally. And 'cause I was like, I never imagined that I could do that. I mean, I did when before I started being an attending, that I
Right.
anticipated my day would be just ending like 5 o'clock, 5:30 with everything done, and then I would have time to spend with my family. Not the
Right.
case for years until the pandemic hit. And
Mhm.
I was able to spend time with my kids. I mean, they were, doing the home online learning, and we baked. We had just some time together. And I thought,
Mhm.
what if I could do the same when I was back to seeing the same 25 patients or so a day? That would be
Curiosity got you, huh?
right. And I think that's a good point, because when you are beyond burned out, when you're beyond exhaustion, you don't even have the capacity to be curious.
No. It's the last thing, having been there myself and back again. I mean, it's definitely I would completely agree with you. The curiosity leads to everything. It's what spurs off, our creativity and looking for new and different solutions to things, but it is absolutely unavailable when you are in the throes of burnout unless somebody helps you to kind of get there or something happens and you get there, right?
Right. So, right now, I mean, at that pandemic point, I was just getting to that phase of maybe something
Mm.
can change. So that at that time, I was introduced to coaching because I had time to explore different things. I
Yeah.
had no clue what coaching was because I thought that was just for sports. What's life coaching? What is that? You need to coach for life? I mean, apparently we do. And
Apparently we do, Mary.
yes, and it's actually the most important thing I have found in life, more than practicing medicine to help other people, because I realized that I need to help myself first
Yeah.
to be well, to help
Mm.
other people.
Yeah.
So I worked with a coach and I realized that my biggest problem or challenge was that I was going home late at night and I had no life. And I just wanted to go home earlier to spend it with my family.
Mm.
So that was kind of the goal that I was working toward. And so gradually, I guess just about within 3 months or so, and at that time, I was already back to seeing the 20 some patients that I was seeing before.
Right.
I was going home by 5:30 with everything done.
Wow. That's an incredible turnaround right there.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't overnight, but
Of
it's
course.
okay.
Yeah.
I was
Mhm.
just seeing the results little bit by little bit. I was, going home like 6:30 with everything done. I was like, it's possible. So then I moved the
Yeah.
timeline a little bit earlier and earlier. And now I'm actually going home before 5 o'clock with the same number
Amazing.
of patients.
Right. Isn't that unbelievable? And I think, you bring up a good point, which is like it's possible,
Yeah.
right? Like it's just that moment when you get this like aha, like this is possible. Why wouldn't it be possible? Right? Because I was thinking all these things that weren't even true. I think it's amazing the power of our thoughts.
Hmm.
And it's something that we don't at all talk about at least in our training.
Not at all. I think a lot of us, well, me included, that I was not conscious of my thoughts and how they
Mhm.
were affecting how I felt and how I acted. So you really brought up a very good point. It's our thinking matters. And it's like the more we're aware of what we think, then we realize that how our emotions are affected and how we act. And that's kind of really the biggest thing that I have learned from being coached.
Yeah. Yeah. When I had that like realization, like you're not your thoughts and not everything you think is true. Those two things, I'm telling you, like it was like it changed so much in how I view things and I view the world and I go about life. I think I was always a little bit of an optimist, but I had become a little bit more pessimistic. And I think those two tenets really made a huge difference in beginning to have that awareness. To your point, we're not even aware that we're having thoughts. So, how could we be aware that some of them aren't even true? Right?
Right.
So interesting. So you went on and you trained to become a coach and you chose to take your experience and share it with other physicians.
Yeah. I actually went on to be in a certification coaching program, not because I wasn't thinking of having my own coaching practice. I was thinking
Mm,
that because us physicians, we just want to get to the depth of everything.
right. Isn't that the truth?
So so then I was like, "Let me just learn this more because it makes so much sense." So
Yep.
that's how I joined the certification program. But then since that I am able to go home on time, I have this free time, and
Hmm.
and I know how miserable many physicians are because I was one of them. Then I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, I want to help people in another way too, besides helping patients." So then I started my coaching practice, shiningwithgratitudemd.com, because I think the name I thought of it, it's
Mm.
because I'm just very grateful for this experience. Not that I really wanted to go through that whole burnout phase and, having no life and wanted to quit medicine 50,000 times,
Great.
but that's actual experience that brought me to where I am now, and I would not trade anything for it.
Mm. Yeah, it's so interesting you say that because I too have found myself in situations where I'm just grateful for the time I was able to be home during the pandemic to be with my then 10-year-old. I was not grateful to have balance and vestibular issues, but because of them, other things opened up. And so it's again, it goes back to that taking care of yourself to help
Yeah.
alleviate the burnout, and then what is possible once you start, like, being exposed to things that you didn't even knew existed or had time to explore. And do you have any other things that came out of that time of I know you're coaching one-to-one, so what other kinds of things do you coach on?
So I coach, I guess, mainly on charting efficiency. And I think a lot of physicians don't realize that it is really a big part of it is life coaching, because charting efficiency, it's yes, it is about being efficient with the techniques and how you do things and all, but that's actually only a small part of it. A big part is, how you think of your day, how you think of
Mm.
seeing your patients, and it starts with the beginning of the day, even before you see the patient or when you wake up in the morning. I
So do you have, like, a practice that you ascribe to? Oh,
Yeah.
share. This is wonderful.
Yeah. So I used to think that my day was determined by the events
Mhm.
and what would happen. Like it would be a good day if everything went well, that type of thing.
Right.
Then I realized that that's not true, because everything that happens itself, they're neutral until we have an opinion about
Mhm.
them. So then, since our thoughts are so powerful, why not choose to think that I'm going to have a good day?
And it starts with that.
So it starts with yes. Of course, I think it's important to take care of ourselves first and have a good
Mhm.
night's sleep.
Right, of course.
Yes. So when you wake up in the morning, just I think, as we talked about earlier, to be conscious of our thoughts. So when you wake up in the morning, you may think that, oh, it's another day. I need to go to work. It's going to be a long day. It's okay to have that thought, but catch yourself and say that, all right, that's my default thinking. And now I want to choose to think something that is helpful for me
Yeah.
to go through the day. So for me, my personal sentence for the day, and I remind myself throughout the day, is today is going to be a great day no matter what happens.
That just I got all the chills because that makes so much sense, there's that adage, "I'm a victim of circumstance," right? And I think a lot of us in medicine at various points have had that feeling of being, like, the victim of all of these things changing in the environment, and yeah, I think that the idea of starting the day with that, like, mantra or your sentence is just so powerful because you're connecting to yourself, and that's the most basic type of self-care you can possibly do.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the more I think about it, the more powerful it's to me, because actually to others too, because when I usually do a quick huddle, with my little team, medical assistant and my nurse, before we start seeing patients. And I would just say that today is going to be a great day, no matter what happens. And actually, a lot of times my staff, they would just say that to me before I even say it. So whatever you're thinking, whatever your attitude is so contagious. And I
Yes.
think that really helps level up the team and let us work together even better and a better
Yeah.
connection, as you said.
So something that comes up pretty often is this idea of like toxic positivity. How if we just think positively, everything will be rosy. And I think it's important for our listeners to understand that that's not at all what coaching is. It's actually more about the awareness of what we're thinking and noticing how those thoughts influence how we feel and how we act. So it's not so much just, I'm going to think happy thoughts. Yes, that's great, but that's not sustainable or realistic, right? Because stuff happens. It's not always joyous. And
Exactly.
that's okay, right? So I think that's just an important distinction to make for our audience that it is not toxic positivity.
Right. And I think just a quick chime in is that, of course, the healthcare system needs a crazy overhaul. And that's a
Mhm.
totally different topic. And
Yep.
at the same time, is I think as individuals, we can do something to take care of ourselves, to take better care of our patients. And as you mentioned, yes, that we're not saying that, oh, I'm always happy all the time. No, I am a human being. I still feel unpleasant emotions on top of the pleasant ones. It's just with coaching and be more conscious of our thoughts and feelings that I am allowing more of myself to process or to experience those negative emotions. And I just, instead of pushing them away, I allow them to be with me for as long as I needed them to be. And I think also with better mindfulness, they don't stay with me for too long. Not
Right.
like before that I was just kind of like thinking and ruminating and all those not so helpful
Mhm.
ways to deal with the emotions. So I
Right.
think it is just important to realize that yes, we're still going to feel happy, sad, angry and all the spectrum of emotions, and that's okay because that's part of the journey. That's part of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well stated. I think that is a really important thing. And one fun fact that I kind of hold on to is that the physiologic experience of emotion, if we actually could tolerate it, is 90 seconds.
Mm,
N- And so it's a matter of, can we just allow it to be there without our next thought being like feeding into that loop, as you mentioned, the rumination. So it's a matter of, I'm angry and I have every right to be angry about whatever happened. But now am I going to feed that more thoughts? Because that's when we get stuck in that loop, right?
yeah.
It's when we can start to have an awareness that, oh, I'm really like sticking and dwelling on this now, right? And so and then you can kind of shift things. I find that is a really helpful like idea and concept because we can tolerate 90 seconds.
Yeah.
It's going to go away, right? The physiologic experience when you get all flushed and you get your heart rate up and you just get all all the things. Yeah. So that I think is a really important little nugget. So now I wanted to shift a tiny little bit and let's talk about gratitude. It is the title of your company. And so I'm wondering, how do you view it? Like, how does gratitude in a person's life shift things for them?
Yeah, so I think that when someone is going through, good times, like according to their liking or whatever you think, then it is easy to be thankful, to be grateful.
Mhm.
Sometimes you may even forget to be grateful, actually. So then when someone is going through hard times, that seems, I think it's very common to just look at more of the challenges and more things to be that you're not happy about, complaining about. And that I think it's a very normal thing to do. So it is a practice, it is an exercise for us to look for something to be grateful for. And why bother, right? It's because being grateful, it just makes you feel better. It's
Mhm.
like instead of taking things for granted, you're appreciating things, and that makes you feel good inside. And I think that even little things like, oh, I'm grateful for this blue sky today, just the birds chirping, something little that or even just, I think I learned a lot of these things from my patients and of
Mm.
course from my own journey too. But it's really amazing to see how some of my very sick oncology patients, and they're in their advanced stage of cancer, and you can see that they're not in the best shape,
Yeah.
yet they are grateful and they
Yeah.
come in with a smile. Like they're thankful for our team of being taken care of. They're thankful for even just going through chemo without much side effects, like it's just things like that. It's like, well, if someone like that can be grateful for things, who am I to not be
Mm.
grateful about things? As far as I know, I'm pretty healthy and I have a great family and friends. And I'm just grateful for, I think the more I look at things, the more I'm grateful for. Like, I'm grateful for you having me on the podcast. I'm grateful for
Aw.
having met so many amazing physicians. And so I think that if we're able to just sit down and just pause and be in the moment and just think, appreciate things around us. And
Mhm.
it's like, I think that's a good way to step out of being burned out. And that's also the start of just feeling better in general. You don't have to be burned out to feel better. You can always feel better and better. Like if you feel like you're an 8, why not feel a 10?
I agree with you. Woo! It's what you said is just it resonates so strongly. I think gratitude allows us to have perspective. And it's not necessarily perspective where we have to either compare and despair, or it has nothing to do with that. But perspective, in so much as I think it is that pause, right? That is what perspective really gives us. It gives us that opportunity to pause and
Mhm.
to consider things. And then we can find the goodness there. Because sometimes it is really hard to find the goodness. But to your point, people do it, right?
Yeah,
And I think it's a choice. It is a choice. We all have different struggles and challenges. And as I have described it to my daughter when she was a little younger, we carry really heavy backpacks
hmm,
full of things, right? Things can be really hard, but it's a choice because you can always let go of some of those things, take them out of the backpack,
yes.
right?
And just
Yeah.
to, continue with the backpack theme, it's that I
Yeah.
think being grateful allows you to let go of things from your backpack.
Yes. Absolutely. Because there's no frenetic sort of energy of holding on to things so tightly, right? I think we kind of can all fall into that so easily. We
Sure.
stay with what we know because that's how our brains work. Likewise, nothing wrong with having those ruminating thoughts. It's how our brains are wired. But we have the opportunity to pause, get that perspective, and then the gratitude turns it around into how we can make our days better, like in your case with
Mhm.
your huddles, or even just, how we view behaviors in of our kids. And we're like, oh, my whole thing is she's a kid. She's a teenager. I mean, it's not an excuse for inexcusable things, but like when you get that frustration about something or whatever it may be, she's doing what kids do, right? It's all in how we frame it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the gratitude part, I wonder, is it something that you teach people to do? Like, because it's a practice, right? How do you work through that with clients?
Yeah, so I think part of the practice we usually do is I ask them to share with me what went well this
Mm,
past week, like just talk about three things in general.
yeah.
And I think I remember when my coach asked me in the beginning of my being coached journey, I was like, what do you mean? Nothing went well.
Right.
So I'm
And you
laughing.
can laugh now, but like at the time, that was like, you were like completely serious.
Right. I was so
Yeah.
serious. I was like, "Are you joking me? Like, I'm here because nothing is going well, right?"
Right.
So, but then the more, she just kept on asking week after week. So then I learned to say, okay, before our meeting, I better be prepared
Yeah.
to share what went well. So then it started to be easier and easier. And then I started to notice things like, because it doesn't have to be something earth shattering or, groundbreaking or, it can be just something, it seemed normal and
Mhm.
ordinary, but you can be grateful for anything and you can appreciate anything. So it's like, what went well, it's that kind of recognizing that and you appreciate it and you're grateful for it, and that's something that went well. And that can happen, you can do that throughout the day. Like, say if I have 20 patients, say, for the day. And after seeing two patients and I'm on time, I'll be like, hey, I'm great. I'm really grateful for I saw 10% of my patients already and I'm still on time. Like, let's go.
It's motivating. Yeah.
And it's a really great source of sustaining fuel for the day, besides having the thought of, today's going to be a great day. So I think that it is so important to find things to be grateful for, find people to be grateful for, and actually let them know, because you know what,
Mm,
that's kind of the contagious part, is that if they feel appreciated, they're happier, they'll work better, faster, more efficient,
mhm.
and they'll probably be more willing to do extra for you if you need it. Not that you're counting on it to be grateful for, but just to be really from your heart that you're grateful for something. Yeah, and I think one thing that we always, well, at least me, forget is that to be grateful for ourselves.
Mm, yeah. Ourselves, that we woke up and took our breath and we didn't have to do anything. It just happens. I mean, when we think about, if you actually stop and think about like our bodies and what they are capable of doing to allow us to live these lives, it's amazing. It truly is amazing. As an OB, I mean, I thought that all the time. Like, yes, I did that for a living, but it still amazed me every single time I delivered a baby.
Yeah,
It's amazing what our bodies can do. And I'm great, and it was grateful everything went well. I mean, everything you're saying resonates so strongly. I didn't know I was doing any of it, but and I didn't do it regularly enough. I didn't practice it because I still got burned out. But I do think it really does shift your perspective in the moment, and
yeah,
that's a really powerful thing, especially like in your line of work, which I'm sure is very gratifying, but emotionally heavy.
it is. It is. And
Yeah.
I think that, well, whenever I share with people what I do, they're like, oh, it's so hard, it's so sad. And I actually don't think so. I mean, it is hard, don't get me wrong, but it's not sad. I mean, of course there are going to be sad moments, like I miss my patients. Like today I just found out one of my longtime patients passed away a couple weeks ago. And
Oh,
and it's like her image of her big smile, it's on my mind, and I just appreciate that. Well, I'm grateful that I got to know her. I'm
yeah.
grateful that whenever she came to my office, she would have this big smile, and her loud voice would be like, oh, she like greeting everybody, like the whole
Mhm.
office would know that she would be here in a good way.
Yeah, yeah. Right?
And so it was just, I think, all these experiences really shape who I am. And I always believe that every day is a learning opportunity. I learn to be grateful through my experience and the patience. And I also learn like what not to say, or like also learn from the not so grateful patients, right? So
Right. Yeah, because there's lessons in that too for all of us. One thing that I like to do is to liken gratitude to a garden, like that our brain is like a garden.
mm,
And the more we lovingly care for it by processing emotions, by acknowledging the good in our lives,
mm,
because as we said before, we tend to dwell, right, on the imperfection. So if we think of it like a garden, those that dwelling are like the weeds that just
yeah.
sprout up in that environment, and they'll take over the landscape. They'll steal all of the nutrients, right? So it's to me, it's like if we tend to those thoughts, those weeds, it allows for intentional planting
Hmm.
of the things we want to bloom. So we can plant gratitude and we can cultivate gratitude and we can enjoy the beauty that comes from planting gratitude. So, yeah, I think it's a critical thing in our lives that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think that's so beautiful to think of it as a garden, and you can choose a garden of gratitude or a piece of land with weeds, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think planting the gratitude, it's like you, because you're so carefully doing it, is that, you also get to unpluck the weeds.
yes,
And I
yeah.
think that is so wonderful.
Well, I'm a visual person and it just resonated. So I thought I would share.
Yeah.
So I could talk about this forever, but I do want to ask another question of you. I'd love to hear a little bit about the book that you co authored. So, can you tell us a little bit about it and how it came to be?
Yes. So, first of all, very grateful for Dr. Una. She compiled the 18 of us to write this book called Made for More Too. That was actually volume one. That was before my time of joining Dr. Una's business school. And so, it's really about our individual journey of how, as doctors, we choose to practice medicine in our terms, and choose to be entrepreneurs, and really design our way of living to be intentional about how to do things, and be successful doing it. So I chose to be in medicine, not thinking that I will be a coach, because I didn't even know that existed, right?
Right.
And so then I think that, just looking back, really everything in my life, shaped me to be the person who I am, and I continue to evolve and grow. And Made for More too is really to share that it is possible for you to, if you have a vision of who you want to be, you can kind of go maybe backwards to work out, okay, what I can do to get closer to where I want to be.
Yeah.
Yes, it is not an overnight thing, but it is possible, because there are, really 18 doctors here in the book to share that it is possible. And even if you're not a physician, it is the same idea that I think it's so important to be doing things in alignment with your values, to, to find joy in what you're doing when you're serving other people. And I think that's what the book is about.
It's beautiful. It sounds like, you can tell me where I'm wrong, but it sounds like it was an exercise in gratitude.
I think so. I mean, I think for me, well, maybe I'm biased. I think everything, it's always, can be an exercise of gratitude, and it's fun. I mean, in the beginning it may be hard work because you're having a hard time finding things to be grateful for, but after a while it would be like they just keep popping up, because it's like the more you look for them, the more they're there. Just like the opposite is, if you look for the weeds, if you look for things to be complaining about, they'll always be there.
Plenty, right? Yeah, for sure. Oh my goodness. I love the fact that Dr. Una compiled all of those and she has another volume. I had read the first one. So I'll have to get the second one. I think it's important that we tell our stories. Super important
Yeah.
because somebody else is going to hear it and feel seen.
Mhm.
And because that's what happened for me, right? I heard other women physicians talking about some of the challenges that they had. And I said, oh, it isn't just me, right? There's something really powerful about that
Mhm.
for sure. So I usually like to kind of wrap up our time together with a little segment I call a dose of inspiration. So I'll go first. So you can come up with your dose. You have so many good ones. I will share something. I had something prepared, but I'm going to share something I wrote down while you were talking about the note taking. And I've heard people say they don't have to be perfect, right? The purpose of it is actually to share information, right? We're
Mhm.
not getting graded on how eloquently we are writing these notes, right? It's so that I can share that patient's important information with you if I'm handing a patient off to you in your care. Somebody
Mhm.
can read it and know what's going on. That's really all it is. So what I wrote was notes are perfunctory, but somewhere along the way they became performative. And I think dose of inspiration that I'm going to take from that is that we can change that. We can go back to whether it's the notes being just perfunctory or our thoughts being more like a planted flower as opposed to the weed. Like we have choice and agency in that.
Mhm.
And that is really inspiring. You can do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have a dose of inspiration you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I think along the lines of what, a continuation of what you're saying, I would just say that allow yourself to let go. Let
Mm.
go of being perfect. I mean, if you're a brain surgeon, please be perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, please do your best.
Yes.
But like there are just things like the charting, the documentation. You just need to really have that information that you need to maybe remind yourself later on. It's like, oh, what did I do exactly? And to communicate with other people of what you're thinking and why you're doing what you're doing. And yes, I'll add a third thing that is kind of essential these days too. It's for, billing purposes, right?
Right.
To reimbursement, because, that's the way that insurance companies see that, oh, that you're serving and you earn what how much you serve, like that degree of billing. Yeah, the important thing is that yes, you don't have to go back and write like a beautiful essay and be graded, because you're not, as you mentioned. And if you want to write point form, it's fine. There is really no set rules to say that, oh, you need to use AI, you need to use a certain format. It doesn't matter. It matters like what suits you best. I have
Mhm.
no AI, I'm me and the dictation tool.
Yeah.
So, and I am able to have the 15-minute time slot for follow up patients, and maybe like 30 to an hour for new patients, depending on
Mhm.
how complex they are. And I'm seeing the 25 patients and leaving before 5 o'clock. And to me, that was not possible before.
Yeah.
And I didn't even dream that it would be possible one day. And here I am just to share with you and everyone who's listening to say that whatever you think is not possible, let go of that and just be open to possibilities. Be curious that what if, don't think of the how yet. Like, it's like, what if it's possible to fill in your blank? And I think, the letting go part, I was just also recently chatting with my client about it, is it's just so liberating because it really opens up so many opportunities. And it's like the unpacking, right? The
Yes.
backpack, it's
Yep.
the letting go of all these yucky thoughts, of these, attitude habits, and just keep the ones that you like to keep.
Yeah. Keep the ones that are helpful,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That make your life better. You don't
Exactly.
have to hang on to the other stuff. You can just
Hmm.
toss it. Oh, well, Mary, I am so grateful for you.
I'm grateful
Thank
for
you
you too.
so much for coming on the podcast, for sharing all of your wisdom and experience with our listeners. There are just so many little pearls and gems scattered throughout. And so thank you very much for taking the time. And where can our listeners find you if they would like to be in touch?
Yeah, so my website is www.shiningwithgratitudemd.com, and you can
Mhm.
email me at shiningwithgratitudemd@gmail.com. And I'm on LinkedIn
Wonderful.
and Facebook too.
Fantastic. We'll put those links in the show notes. And if people are interested in checking out your book, that is called Made for More 2,
Yeah,
that can be found on
Amazon.
Amazon.
Yeah,
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so, so much for joining us,
thank you so
and
much.
be well. Thanks for sharing your time with me here on Prescribing Possibility. I hope today's conversation offered you a breath of fresh air, a new perspective, or even just a moment of calm in the chaos of life. If this episode resonated with you, pass it along to a friend or a colleague. You never know who might need a little more harmony in their life today. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your questions, or topics you're curious about. Reach out to me anytime on Instagram or LinkedIn at dimknawile, or send me an email at podcast@dimknawile.com. Until next time, give yourself the grace to grow, the space to rest, and the courage to imagine what's next.